priorities and best practices and things like that. The next one is going to be, the next two are Marcy, who's our Google guru, and she's going to go dive into more like managing the domain and whitelisting and blacklisting and doing it that way and any of the newer nuances of that. And then the final one is the vault, which is where all your information is stored. And so we'll kind of address that, but today it's a very basic kind of 101. So if anyone here feels like, you know, they just kind of signed up for all three and thought like it was all three, or at the end of this say, hey, I really want to take 2 and 3. I only signed up for this one, but I think I want to take the next two. Even if you're not able, we're recording these. So if you didn't sign up for the other two because of date, let us know on the feedback form and we'll add you on. And if you don't make it because it was like a date issue or something, we'll make sure you get the recording. So I just wanted to start off that way. So if you feel like this, that you're already kind of very comfortable with this, and you need to jump off, feel free. We won't be offended because we know that there are people on here that are doing that. So I just wanted to make that clear to you. So the link for the next 2 sessions will not be this link. You'll get one link that'll be for sessions 2 and 3. We'll send you on Wednesday. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that before we actually start to dive in? We're good? Okay.
And if anyone has any questions, again, like what we saw earlier, please unmute, type it in the chat. At the end of the day, this session our intention is to be as helpful as we can. It's not very often where we get to kind of meet and talk about all the nuances in Google, Google admin. So this is really your opportunity to kind of put those questions out there. If we don't have the answer, we can always go get the answer, or maybe someone in this group actually knows the answer. Again, like we said before, there are a lot of participants here who are very already we consider very well versed in Google admin. So, there's a wealth of knowledge in here. Okay. And the reason we're starting off with the Google basics of Google admin is because as we go into Marcy's sessions, there are things that she's going to teach us that work well when we have our groups, our organizational units customized and detailed to what our school is, because then that's how you get into specific tailored needs into specific groups and grade levels. So just keeping that in mind. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, feel free to go. I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you want to just throw questions in, and at the end, we're going to stay on and be able to answer questions. And, we learn from each other. So if there's something that like that's a good practice that you're following that you want to share with us, feel free, throw that in the chat as well. And as you can see, we're recording this, so we'll make sure that you get a copy as well that you can watch again, because we know a lot of information comes your way. So today is really just about like the best way to have your Google admin console set up so that when you take the next 2 sessions, setting up for the exams, like setting up your groups so that when you're setting up for the CBTs, that you're going to be able to do that, seamlessly, as opposed to having like all the students. Mm-hmm. So we can start diving right in. Today we're going to go over. So today's agenda is we're going to start off just looking at the actual console, looking at the different features. We're going to go over the different admin roles. And suggestions for the best ways to administer those admin roles, setting up your organizational units, the best practices for creating them, your best practices for just using the actual admin portal to begin with, reviewing app access control, and then at the end we will have a Q&A and sharing out some stuff. So feel free to do that. And if it's something, if you want to unmute, we're not an extremely large group. So I think you could just feel free to unmute if you need to, or just, stick it in the chat.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can pull up our Google admin account here. And then just a very small disclaimer that the Google admin portal that we are going to be seeing is from a previous school that was open but is no longer open, which is why it's giving us the opportunity to kind of play around with it as we are going to do today. Okay. So let me just click this, bring this up. Bring this over. 1 second. Okay. Laura, you're gonna have to guide me if anybody has any questions because I
Yes.
can't really see anything at the moment.
Oh, no, yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yes,
So, so let's begin. Let's do.
so as you're putting that up, does anyone have any questions about what the vault is? Because some people, so all of your information is stored in what they call a vault. So there's a vault area that stores all your information forever if it's set that way. That you can use, that you can search into. So I highly suggest, if you have not been introduced to the vault, to try to attend that one. That, which is the last one, session 3. Yeah, you may be surprised by some of the things that you can actually find in the vault. And Marcy's very well versed in that, so she can help you set that up.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look here at our, oh, trying to move you guys over. Okay, let's take a look here at our portal. So again, whenever we're signed into our Google admin portal, you are going to just go onto your waffle. I call it a waffle. And then just look for your admin icon, which has changed over the years, but now it's this like nice little shape here that says admin on the bottom. You can always move it around if that is something you'd like to do to have it more kind of come further up, right? Sometimes we forget that it's so down there. So depending, this is all customizable. So if you are like the admin and you just want it up there because it's something you frequently go to so that you're not looking at it, you can just drag any of the icons up really. So just keeping that in mind, okay? When you go in, you're going to go to, like, it automatically brings you to this home page here where you have a couple of different tiles. You have your user, your app access control, which is actually kind of new. It started appearing last year. So one of these things, and we'll get into app access control. Unfortunately, this doesn't have like an actual kind of like notification that says, hey, you have these apps to kind of review that your teachers want to use. So it's important to keep an eye on this, and we'll go into this in a minute. You have your billing right now. Most of us should have the free education one, so there really shouldn't be any billing unless you've gone to a pro plan. And just keeping in mind that the education like pro tier that goes up does have a lot of like new features that aren't even allowed in the basic education plan. So just keeping that in mind. You have your discover section, your product updates and anything that needs to be happening, your domain alerts, and these alerts often are overlooked, whether it's email scams that Google might be noticing that are being sent out to any of the Chromebooks or any of the accounts that you have. So just keeping that in mind, this might be something to look into, right? You can go into creating your groups for Google Groups, which I know some of us have been going into, which is great. These accesses right here, these little tiles here, a lot of them are also on this left-hand side too. And as you go down, you can see that there is a plethora of things. You have your apps, your organizational units, building and resources, which is often not used, but can be very useful if like you have your science teachers that want to sign up for the science room, the lab, and you're trying to get a schedule. You can put your science room as a building that they can use in your Google Calendar to kind of sign out and sign in so that everybody's on the same page. All the science teachers are on the same page of when those rooms are being used. And your admin roles. These are very important, and that's kind of what we're going to start with right now. So if you click on your admin roles, you have a whole list of rows here. You have your super admin, which is the very top tier, right? You have access to anything and everything that is on your Google education based system, calendar events, allowing blocking and whitelisting specific URLs, how you want the features on your admin portal to come and show to the students, what students and teachers are allowed to use, creating groups. It is everything and everything. Your groups admin, right? This is you're giving someone a particular job. You're saying that maybe you have an IT person, and but all you want them to do is to be able to manage the different groups. And creating different groups in Google Groups to kind of say, so someone said earlier that they have like a teacher group. So you have someone that is able to go in here and make a teacher group so that maybe people can directly only email that teacher group for specific things. You have someone to do that. They can add members, they can take members away from groups. So this is kind of like that system role here. And user management admins, right? This one, you're giving them a little bit more access to creating actual accounts and users, but not anything more than that. So they have the ability to kind of go in and make new users, suspend users, renaming users, and changing passwords, right? You can change them into the different types of organizational units that you may have in your system already listed or are working on creating, right? Everybody's on a different pattern here, so it's important to kind of know where you are in that. And this might be, we've seen it in a couple of different ways where only specific people in the building, not just maybe it's the principal that who also has this right because there are the super admin, but maybe an IT director is also in charge of giving them the user management admin where they are in charge of creating usernames and passwords. So keeping that in mind, we have seen it where it's gone to a very minimal level to like teachers, but again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because there is such a turnaround with teachers in the building. So I really don't want to recommend that being an option, but it is something that a lot of schools have done at this point. You know what your own school building is, but just keeping that in mind that if you're giving them this particular power, because it is a form of power, you want to keep in mind that when and if they do leave, you want to take that power away from them, right? And that does not mean deleting an account, but rather that means suspending an account, all right? And we're going to get into the difference between deleting and suspending and kind of what that entails. Laura, I see you want to say something.
With the super admins, I just want to stress that a super admin has a lot of power and it really has access to everything into this account. So whoever you make your super admin, it shouldn't be just one person. You should definitely have a backup. So obviously principal, yes, first of all, but you should have someone who's your backup admin. There should at least be two super admins. I can't stress that enough because we've seen a lot of issues where people have had only one admin and then we lose the whole domain because we can't get in again. So there is so if you do want to give someone additional rights to really pay attention to these other, and I think we just started, in the very beginning when we were very unfamiliar with it, we gave everybody super admin powers. And so looking at these different admin roles and see who you would like to have as like a backup. It's great to have someone who is maybe, working in the office or someone who does this part-time, helps you with your tech. That could be the users that if you're not in the building and there's someone needs to get into an account or change something, they're able to, and put a new student in, add someone in. But that's it. It's not the super admin role. So the super admin role really is the top. And I just wanted to stress that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean it's very true. So again, that super admin, it's like you have the power to do everything that's on here that we're all these different groups that we're going through, right? And that brings us to like
The
our
vault. See, when you get to the vault, you'll
get to the
see
vault,
how much, it's
how much
basically
power you
everything.
have.
Right. It's everything that's ever been done on Google. So Google does not get rid of anything. So anything that's ever been written on Google is here. So if you started to write like a shopping list and never finished it, or you sometimes you just start to write something and then it's untitled. Everything you've ever done is still there. it's not it. So we'll keep stressing that throughout.
Yeah, no, and that's very important to understand. Sometimes we forget that. But yeah, and that not just goes for us as teachers within this Google education domain, but also for our students. Everything gets recorded from them. Okay. Okay, so our help desk admin, right? And it doesn't when we say it, a lot of people have been like, oh, like technical support, if it's broken or that's kind of like the power that they have. That's not necessarily true, right? So the help desk admin, right? They have their functionality is that they can actually go in and reset passwords, right, for non-admin users. So like not anybody on like the administrative level, but like maybe teachers or students, they can reset those passwords. They can look at the organizational structure, so they can look at all the groups, all the different groups that we have. They can even manage group members, but they really don't have that much power. They're really there to help support. Like if you just need someone forgot their password and they need help resetting that, this particular help desk admin can do that. That's a specific role that they can do. And you can assign someone a plethora of different roles. If you don't want to give that, maybe you have a secretary who is your second in command and giving you that extra support. Maybe you don't want them as a super admin for whatever reason, but you can go in here and you can say, I'm going to give you user management admin. You can be the help desk admin, and you can work on groups, right? Giving them the option to work with a lot of like creating profiles and things like that. And so that you have like an extra person there that's working on that. But you're not giving them like overall all the power in the world, right? So keeping that in mind. We have our service admin, right? Which are extra services within devices as well. So here we have like they can work on our Google Calendar, whether we're turning those services on or off, or changing anything in the settings for anything in the G Suite, right? So that's Google Calendar, Google Drive, Google Docs, anything in that Google area. They might have the ability to go in and turn those services off or turn those services on for anybody within the domain or specific groups if that's what's being needed for that school building. They can also manage the Google Workspace Marketplace apps. So they can be in charge of adding, maybe there is an extension of an app, maybe like this Ed Puzzle icon right here. Maybe they see that the teachers need Ed Puzzle extension. They can go in and add that extension and have it sent out to everybody in your organization through a click of a button. They can control specific Google services. So maybe you have Google Earth turned off and a teacher might need it. They can go in and kind of say, okay, well, this teacher needs it because they're doing a gallery walkthrough and exploring a specific town because that's what they're researching. So I'm going to turn it on for that group only. Laura?
I just wanted to jump in and say, I know it becomes overwhelming when you're the super admin doing all of this. So really paying attention to the roles to try to get someone to assist, because managing this by yourself, if it's your one person, is a lot. So there are these backup roles that can assist you, and you can have people there. So it is there. I would just want to throw out to the guy. Is there anyone who uses some of these different administration rights with teachers or with other teachers in the building? Has anyone used any, given somebody outside of just the super admin
I
role?
did. I
Yes.
did,
Okay.
Laura. I
Okay.
gave to the early ed, Mrs. Forgione,
Uh-huh.
so she has the ability to reset passwords.
Okay. Great. Yeah. So like to even to have like that backup there. So you always have the backup super admin. That's someone that's in the building. Like, and I know like some people have been some of the superintendents as um, super admins, and every school is different. But if you really pay attention to this, and we'll give you a little write up. We have little explanations of these admin roles that we
Right.
can share with you, to assign people so that you do have some kind of a backup system, that if you're not there or that they can take on, like, putting in the new kindergarten class that comes in, or suspending the eighth grade for you, or like Shirley just said, like adding an extension. Like to stop in the middle of the day and be like, oh, we need an extension, is difficult to do. So to have, one other person that's just taking on that one, has that ability to do that, is helps to relieve this stress from you.
Right. And I think one of the things too is like if you're giving someone this power, because again, it is a power, you're giving them power over something that you're doing within your school, being clear as to what kind of power you're giving them, to the expectations of having this particular role, right? You need to find someone of confidence to be able to manage and be responsible for this particular type of role that you're giving them, whether it's super admin, whether it's groups editor, where it's, if it's a service admin or a help desk admin, whoever you're giving a specific type of role to within your Google education system, it's important that you are clear with the responsibilities, and even giving them the opportunity to walk through like what they're going to be in charge of actually doing. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions about the admin roles?
Okay. All right. And then one role that I just want to touch on very quickly, right, is the mobile admin, right? So this particular role, actually, it gets overlooked, and sometimes even as super admins, we overlook like what this actually does. This allows you to say like where certain accounts are being located and signed in from, right? And I know that like when I was teaching, I would always look into it because sometimes our students are signing in from iPhones, different type of tablets and stuff like that, and it gets very cluttered to a certain point. So this particular admin role can kind of help you kind of say, all right, I need everybody to be signed out from anything that's not a device from our school, right? And then you can kind of see, it'll say like iPad, or sometimes, because they're sometimes labeled, sometimes it'll be like Jessica's iPad, right? And then if you don't want it on a device that's not school related, so you just kind of want to log them out and decline access to that specific device. Okay. All right, so we're going to go into our users now. So we're going to go back to our dashboard. Right. All right. All right. Back to our users, right? And we want to manage our users. And this is very important, right? We want, and again, this is from a previous school, so there is information here. So I know a lot of us like to take like pictures and stuff to make sure that we're doing, but remember, you are going to get a recorded of this where all the student information will be taken away. So just keep that in mind. But you'll notice here that there are different forms of organizational units. All these, right? Anything underneath the actual domain, right? So this is our domain here. This is our domain listed. This is the big like house. And underneath it are all individual rooms within this house, right? And all the rooms in this house go by a set of rules, right? And those rules can be different for each room. But the only way to give people specific rules in each room is to have the rooms created already. So, for example, we want to make sure that we have a whole list of all of the students in our building, and that can be done by graduation year, right? I know in the past, like a lot of people have said, oh, I just do, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, so on and so forth. But then that's a lot more management on your end, in the sense of now you have to know, all right, I have to change grade 5 to grade 6 because now they're in a new year, or I have to move them from one group to another, and it gets to be a hassle. But it's easier if you just label them by their graduation year. So class of 2025, right? Or class of 2026, and going and starting from there. Now, if you're implementing the system from, you have your students already in your Google admin, it is going to be a little bit of a task in order to kind of get everybody into their right organizational system, but it can be very helpful because then you can limit a lot of the different features and access that they have in order to get into that. And to manage them and to create them is pretty simple. So you want to go to manage down here. You want to go to manage organizational units. right? And here you get your list. Again, remember, this is the house, and these are all the different rooms that we have here. We can create additional rooms in this house. So we would just hit on create new organizational unit, name that, and it would be class of, just going to do 2025 for right now. You can add a description if you want, maybe just for your own sanity. You could say current class of 8th grade that will be graduating, things like that. Or right now we have a lot of testing, and this I'm going to hold that off for a little bit more on devices. Let me not get ahead of myself. But you can add your description there. It will go in this organizational parent, right, in the house of this domain, and then you're just going to press create. So now you'll see that this room, right, or organizational unit, or OU, was created right here underneath inside of this house, okay, which is our domain. So now we can add students into here, right, by simply clicking on the 3 buttons right here, and we can edit. Oh, oh. Can we? No, we cannot. Okay. But you'll notice here, right? So it says create a new organizational unit who needs specific features and settings. So this right here, this will always, it's like your cookie trail, right? This will tell you where it's going to be located. So you're going to, in this specific instance, you're going to say, this is the house, this is the room, and now it's going to go into a different room after that, right? So kind of going further down into that kind of rabbit hole. You don't need to get so specific into that, but it is part, something that you can do. You can also make an organizational unit for those of us that have like testing, right? For like within devices within itself to kind of say, this specific set of devices needs to go, and you can label it like testing devices so that any updates or anything that needs to be going can be done to that specific organizational unit. Okay. I always recommend something for faculty. So having a faculty organizational unit within this house is always beneficial because you want to be able to establish the difference between your students and your faculty. Okay. Any questions on this so far? No. Laura, how are we doing on the chat?
No questions yet.
Okay, perfect. Did anyone else do like something different with their organizational units? What something that seems to be working for them that might be helpful for the group? That anybody would like to share while I take a sip of water?
Sure. Hi, my name is Teresa. How are you?
Good. Hi, Teresa.
Good. What I do, because I work in several schools, is what I do is I create like a student. And I see how you did faculty. I created student, just general student. And there I broke it down through the year, as you suggested, 2025, 2026, 2027. And so it allows me to grab a hold of, the 3 group, maybe the middle school group might be on Go Guardian and the younger kids are not on Go Guardian. So I was able to kind of work in that process, because if you put everything on the second level of your house, then it's a little bit more difficult. Here you can just click, oh, all students are not allowed to access this, rather than click on each unit organization. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like you can actually identify, okay, these are the kids. I do not want them to go on YouTube for 2 weeks or something. So anyway, that's what I did just to make it easier in the organizational group. I just labeled students and I put all the different grade levels under there. So just a thought.
No, that's perfect. And that's a great example of like what we were talking about to do, going into from room to room to room, which is awesome. Yes, it does make things a lot easier to manage. So I hope everybody wrote that idea down because I think that's a great idea. So we have another one. I usually made a sub OU organizational unit for students with IEPs as well, as in class of 2025. And then within that organizational unit, IEP, which helps with giving access to plugins for specific students. That is great. And that is very helpful. I will say, because IEP students sometimes need specific extensions or specific rights to like a site or something, where, you know, you don't want everybody to be able to use it because it doesn't really specify to them. So that is awesome. I love that. Great idea. Someone write that down because that is amazing. I'm
And
probably going to be sharing that.
also it's also helpful with the testing now, right? So that you're able to just click on the students that need to have like the proctorio and the whole, so that you're able to just click it. And the IEP is an excellent idea. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that's, oh, love that. Yay. Everybody's sharing. Okay. So, um, does anybody else have anything to share before we go on? How are we doing on timing? 4:03. Okay. Um, are we good? Okay. All right. So one of the things that I know that a lot of us need a little cue to kind of remember. So I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to go back to the home. Is our app access control, right? This is something that I want to kind of just highlight and remind us all to do. This is really more of a reminder to do. And again, Google has updated their privacy terms. They're trying to become as strict as possible, right? And they're changing a lot of the things done for privacy reasons and within their tiers, right? So app access control, right, is an extra layer of protection. Again, because we are dealing with students that are under the age of 18 at this point, Google wants to make sure to say, are you sharing your information with a safe and educational site? And to do that, you need to, the super admin, and only the super admin can actually go in and say, yes, this is a safe and educated site where you can share students' a name and, you know, and their email address in order to continue onto this site, right? So, and that includes, this will trigger things like, if you're doing sign in with Google, right? We have had many teachers come to us and say, I can't go into Discover Education. I get a access denied symbol when I click on sign in with Google and put in my Gmail information for my school. And that's because on the Google admin side, it's you know, a super admin needs to say, this is safe. Please share first, last name, and email with Discovery Education or with any site. And it's safe to continue, right? So it's again, just going through those layers of safety. So it will always be triggered when someone is trying to go and share their information from with Google to another site. So you can always review your apps. It'll tell you how many app pending reviews you have and the user request. So if you go in here and go to review apps, right? So this particular one, code.org, I'm sure they needed to do a sign in with Google feature. So they needed to go in and you can either dismiss it if it's a site that you don't know. And this is where kind of research is involved, right? Sometimes there are going to be sites here that you may not know what it is, and you're going to have to do your own research to see if it is educational or not. And it'll tell you, like, you know, the web ID and stuff. But again, always do your research as to what kind of site you're allowing your students or teachers' information to be shared to. But let's say code.org, valuable, great site. I want to configure access. What this means is I want to go and approve it. So you're going to say you can approve it to your whole organizational unit. So that's everybody within the big house, right? Anybody listed in that big house is going to have access to this website now, right? And if it's something, let's say it's we're talking about a website that not everybody in the school needs, you can go and you can, if I go here to configure access, you can get more specific. You can do all the users, you could do specific organizational units, right? So you can go in here and you could say, no, I just want it for class of 2025 and only class of 2025. Or if it's something that the IEP kids need and you have an IEP category with under this, then you could say, yeah, only my IEP kids kind of need this. So I'm just going to give it to my IEP kids there. And then you could select it. And then it will only go to that specific OU, organizational unit, that you have selected. And only they will have that functionality to then, they'll have to click out of that tab and then start again, go back to the site, try signing in with however they were signing in, and then they'll be able to access that. So you'll click here, you'll go next. You're going to say that you can trust it and say it's going to be trusted forever. You can say it's limited. You could say that, you're only going to give them access to it for like a specific time, but check back with me in like a month or a week or whatever the time limit is. And then usually it gives you like the Google data will give you like a minimum of like 30 days. And then in 30 days, it'll be like, hey, is this still a safe site? Do you still think that it's trusted, or have you reevaluated and you want to change it and you want to take access away? So that's an option there. So this is new, right? And this is why we always have to check it, because this is actually a brand new feature that actually came out, I want to say either July or August, because they love to do their updates literally as school is rolling back in. Why? Lord only knows why. But specific Google data. So this app can only request access to your user data from Google services, and that would be your classroom or your Google sign in. No, you may trust, right? You must include the Google sign in scope. So these are two different options that honestly I have not had the opportunity to kind of like play around with, but let's see what we can play around with now. So you're going to see, you can view your Google classes, or you can view your class rosters. All right. So this is kind of limiting what kind of access they have within Google, right? Making sure that you can either a lot of like Edpuzzle. I keep going back to Edpuzzle, but Edpuzzle or even Freckle. That's a perfect example. Freckle. When teachers sign in or they want to have the opportunity to link things to their Google Classroom, if it wasn't a trusted site, it would come up here, and you could say maybe if you want to limit to a Google specific platform that it's trying to connect to, you could say you can only see the Google Classroom classes, or you can only see the rosters within the classes. So those are things that you can kind of click. Same thing with your Google sign-in. So primarily account associated with your personal info, or you see your personal info and include anything any information available there. Or you can say this is not an educational site and I just want to block it. I just want to block it completely. Don't ask me again. This is just not good. They will if it's a site and they say, someone else tries to do it, and they'll, the permission will go and request it again, and you'll have to block it again, because it kind of just resets sometimes. Okay. So those are your options. Again, this is brand new option. But then you could say it's trusted or limited or going from there. And then you just click next. You review any of the, things that you did here. So just making sure that you sent it to the right organizational unit and where you want it to be, and review that it is trusted. And then you just configure your access. It'll give you, are you sure you want to do it? Are you really trusting this site with your information? And you're going to say confirm. But again, notice all those layers of protection that kind of go through that. So you will, again, for things like Savvis, again, there's an example right here that will try and connect to your Google Classroom. If you're having problems connecting that way, then it's probably because you have to do an app access approval. And again, things like Edpuzzle, if you're using Canva, if you're using anything that requires you to share Google information with the site somehow, in some way, any kind of sign on, it will flag this. It will flag it. And teachers can, once it's approved, teachers do have to exit out of the tab that they tried to sign in from, and then open up a new tab in order to sign into it, so that it can kind of like reset and then allow you to go through it. Laura?
I just wanted to point out the verified. That's important to see, because say, for instance, one of your angels decides to try to get into an app, you're signing in through Google, it's going to pop up there because someone's attempted to go in through your domain into an app. So any other app outside of what you're doing. So you'll see that there, but the verified just means that it is verified as a legit.
As an actual site. I will say it'll list as an actual site, because I've had a student go in here and try and use their educational account to open up TikTok and open up a TikTok account with their educational account. And it said TikTok, it had the little TikTok symbol, and next to it, it said verified, because it is an actual site. So the verified kind of just goes through the fact that like it's a legitimate website, right? As opposed to like a sketchy website that you're kind of using. But this is why further research is always required.
I mean, I was in one school there to Spotify, We tried to Spotify go through that with our Google account. So, and Spotify is it's a verified site. It's just not for you. So, right. So you'll see it's verified. That's one. You'll look there. That doesn't mean that it's cleared for your building, right? So you still want to check what it is if it's something that you're using. I mean, no one in school needs to be going through, Spotify through there.
I usually check to see who requested it.
Yes.
And if a child requested it, I don't grant any kind of access.
You tell them, Maria.
Yeah. Like that. Like that. Lock it down. Lock it down.
They don't, because you can tell who requested it.
I was just going to say, how do you tell that who requested it? I didn't.
It's under user right there. If you click that number 1,
Oh, yes.
if you click that, it'll tell you who requested it.
Okay, great.
Which is nice. It is very nice. It is very nice to kind of have that. And you can always download that list.
So is it a teacher that's requesting
Parent teacher conference time? What's your kid doing? What's your kid doing? Oh, he's trying to get Spotify in the middle of third grade in your third period classroom.
I did see 1 or 2 trying to get some kind of AI, and naturally I took that off. And usually if I'm giving teachers access to some kind of AI, I have the organizational group just for teachers. So I give it just to the teachers.
Yes, and again, great use of that functionality of our organizational units, and it comes in handy. It comes in handy. Even if you're trying to limit something like whether, students can email, those organizational units will be very handy because you'll want to be able to, maybe you don't want K to 7 to be emailing, but you want 8th grade to be able to send emails because they're trying to email their future high schools. Those organizational units come in handy, so that you can say, all right, K to 7, no email, but class of 2025, you're allowed to email for those specific reasons, right? So just keeping that in mind. Any questions about app access? Anything anybody want to share? I will just say a quick reminder, they don't always send a notification saying, hey, someone's trying to, access an educational site. So, this is definitely something you have to kind of keep in touch and, go to your Google admin every once in a while and say, oh, okay, well, let me, maybe it's something that you check every Monday morning, and you're going to say, oh, okay, I have to allow access to 2 sites that are educational based. It says, I have subgroups that only specific students can have access to email to specific teachers. I like that. That's really good too. I like that. That's a good idea too. Okay. And I know we're like wrapping up on time. So I just want to get through everything else. Okay. We did have someone ask a question earlier about security and 2-factor authentication. Okay, which is something that you can do. It is something that you can do. So if you go into your security tab right here on your security tab category here, you can go through authentication and you'll get your 2-step verification. And you can go here, and I'm just going to bring this down. You can go here and you can say maybe only your faculty is going to have this opportunity for 2-factor authentication, right? And you can allow it to turn on, right? Or you could say starting from whatever date you want it to go into. And then if you have new users, I'm going to press it for now so we could see. If you have any new user, anybody that's new created and put into this specific category, you can say, you're going to want it to start, in a day, in a week, however you want it to do that. Allow user to, trust the device. And that usually says, remember this device for like 7 days, or don't ask me for 2-factor authentication for like, the next 7 days, and then it'll refresh and some, things like that. Method, you could do any method. You could do a verification code via text or phone, or only security key. I would do this. Obviously, you don't want to turn this on for your students, right? Because they're not going to have a way, because this is the only thing that we're limiting them to. But for faculty purposes, that if you'd like to have this, particular thing turned on, then you can. Okay. Any questions on this, on the two-factor? We're good, no good. Okay. But yeah, so that is an option. One thing I will say with two-factor authentication, and even, you know, things that we've talked about where it comes to giving people like the super admin access, is you want to make sure, I'm just going to cancel this. You want to make sure that this account recovery option is open. So it says right here, super admins can recover their own accounts if they forget their password. That, you know, I would leave on, because sometimes it does happen where the super admin, you know, you might forget your password. It, you know, it happens to all of us, especially with all the different passwords and stuff that's out there. But here, users and non-super admins can recover their own account if they forget their password. I would check this, because sometimes we have it on and we don't notice, right? And again, within your own school, you might want to know like what's best and what fits for your students and for your faculty. But sometimes I've seen this where this part is on and people haven't really noticed that. So I would make sure that this is off.
You want to be able to control their access, right? I mean, life happens and emergencies happen. Sometimes people leave immediately, or something. So you want to have the super admin definitely recovery on, so that if God forbid something happens and someone else has to step in as super admin, that you're able to recover it. Okay, because that's happened we've seen that happen in the past as well. Also, if someone leaves and you don't want them having access into the school domain anymore. Mm-hmm. So if they could recover it, you want to make sure that's off, so that if you now they're able to then change it right back. So you change their password, they could just change it right back if this recovery is on. So definitely check that one.
Right. Okay. Any other questions that we should kind of address? Because I know we want to leave some time for Q&A.
Can we review just do not delete?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. So users, right? So we're going to go, just click on, let's go back up here and we'll just go back to users. So users, right? We want, because we are dealing with educational accounts, right? We want to make sure that once students leave, right, they are not deleted, but we want suspended accounts. Okay. And yes, and teachers as well. We want to make sure that those accounts are suspended and not deleted. And Laura loves to talk about this. So I'm going to let Laura talk about kind of like why they should be suspended versus deleted.
I had an incident years ago, which was way before there was Google. But like for those who remember the Yellow Book attendance back in the day, my Yellow Book was subpoenaed like 2 years after I had a student because of a custody. But years ago when we first started with the Google, there was also an incident like that. There's nothing to do with school, but a parent, they wanted to see emails from the student, and if you delete it, it's gone. So you want to make sure it's suspended. You don't have to keep it in there forever, but at least rule of thumb, and you should check what's the rule of thumb of how long to keep it suspended. But at least I would say at least a year. Just keep it suspended into your account, and then at that point, once a person, then you can clear it out. But we have to don't just quickly just start deleting people. You want to make sure, because there are things that happen, especially in the education world, where you may have to go into somebody's account well after, and you want to make sure that you have access to that. So rule of thumb is to suspend. Your 8th grade, you could do a lot of times. The 8th grade, you usually give them a time before you suspend, so that they can remove some of their, if they want to take some papers that they wrote and be able to clear out their drive and do things like that and transfer it to their personal, that they have that opportunity to do that, and then suspend it, and keep it suspended for the first year. So, because a lot of times people will reach out. So you want to make sure that you're kind of following that, because once it's deleted, it's deleted. So you want to make sure that you suspend. So suspend. Do not delete right away.
Right. And you can have an organizational unit here, like already like created that says maybe you want to label it suspended users. And then, you just take them and you change their organizational unit. You can just click them like this and then and you're more, I probably won't work there.
So a month from now, if Joey leaves school,
Right. We want to select
they're moving away, they're not coming back. And then, next year, Joey pops up again.
Right. And then you
have
can
to put them right back in again. Yeah, we have situations, all different kinds of scenarios that we could talk about. But we could go to make sure, and I think it's a good idea to have suspended. Sometimes people use that as a way to just like they'll suspend a student's account if they think something's happening inappropriately, and they keep it suspended like that. So you could have like current year suspensions so that you could go back into their account. You could suspend, like if there's some kind of so and so, wrote this to so and so, suspend the account right away. No one could get access to it, and then you could go into it and then be able to look at it that way. So we want to. We have.
I created an alumni OU to move graduated OUs to as needed. That's cute. I like that. I like that. That's a very positive way of looking at it. I love that. Yay, Chuck. Okay. Do we have anything else that we might have questions on that we have time to kind of like go through them, answer anything specific that you guys might be thinking about, generating about, questions on? Just want to tell me about your day. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can kind of come back as a group and just look. This would be a good time to kind of see where we're at questions wise. Because again, one of the things, Google Admin, very powerful, but it can be very overwhelming to kind of just like take everything in. My teachers used to be able to upload their grades to fax, but they cannot do that anymore. Okay. I'm glad someone brought that up because we've kind of seen this be a problem in another school. And again, I through this whole session, I've been saying Google has been changing their tiers, and unfortunately, doing a sync through an SIS system such as fax is now part of the paid subscription for Google Education. So in order for you to be able to link to fax again, like through that Google part, you actually need to go into Education Pro plan. Which is it's like $5 per student. And then for every like 4 students that you have enrolled, you get like a free adult account for like a teacher. So yeah, bad Google for doing that, but unfortunately it's a paid thing now because they implemented the use of like you have to go through Google Cloud to then be able to get the specific API address to have it talk to fax. And I think fax now also charges like a $500 fee. That part I saw it on a paper, saw it on PDF that they sent this person. So just putting that out there. So I'm so sorry about that. Yeah. Are we going to get a copy of this so that I can share with other admins? You are. A lot of student information is going to be blocked out and blurred out through the power of editing. But yes, you will get a secure link to this particular recording.
Okay, so this was the preliminary for the next 2, right, that Marcy's going to do. So for the next one, which is Thursday, so I'm going to put the feedback form up in the chat in 1 minute once I'm done talking. But the next one is managing your domain and looking more at the domains and restrictions and things like that. So if you want to dive a little deeper, this was really how to set it up so that those 2 next sessions make sense for you. So that when we're looking at different things, you'll have your organizational units set up and have these great suggestions of ways you might want to set it up. Maybe break them down a little bit more. Getting ready for it. And so the next one is Matt, and then the following Tuesday is. So if you didn't register for those, we'll give it on the feedback form. There's an opportunity to say, do that. You don't have to fill out a form again. We're just going to send you the link and just add you to the list for that date if you want to hear a little bit more. I really suggest you try to, someone from your school try to go to the vault just so you see what's in there. Google saves everything, and everyone really needs to be aware of that. Everything is on there, and it's this wealth of information that's on there that you can retrieve that you need if you need to. And not that, we're not police officers, not necessarily to be like in that sense, but things come up. We are in an education world and sometimes we have to look up things that, and we, again, please remind teachers as well as students, deleting doesn't mean anything. You can hit the delete button, it's still in that vault. So you can delete, and it's still in the vault. So I sent a message to someone, it's deleted, you go in the vault, so there it is. It's there. So sometimes you want to have access to at least know where to get information if you need to. So I suggest at least one person, hopefully only a super admin will have access to a vault. Just so you know that. So you want to make sure that someone's there at least to get the information for that. And even if you can't make it, again, just say you want the link so that we put you on the list so that you get the recording. Okay, so let me just get the feedback form on here.
I do hope this was helpful for everybody. I appreciate the collaboration and different ideas that everybody's kind of doing. I hope that someone was able to take away something from, from the session, just, whether it's like how to organize your OUs or, the different variations of organization within OUs. Now this is really the time to kind of go into your Google admin and look, okay, what is it that I need? Like, what's my structure going to be like? What is best going to benefit my students?
And as always, if you have a question, please reach out.
Right. If you're a little shy and you maybe have a question that you didn't want to ask in front of everybody, you can meet with us individually and we can help you out as best you can. Thank you for coming, Chuck.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. We learn best from each other. So as the year, if people get different ideas, like that's a great idea with the IEPs, and I know that's definitely a focus this year in the schools. So thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for taking your time.
Your certificate will be linked after you do the feedback form, so make sure you put that feedback form in. And educational emails only, please. You guys can hop off as soon as you're ready.
It's right away. Thank you.
No, they're running.
It's a Monday. Thanks for coming on a Monday.
Well, I'm gonna stop recording.